Hey, welcome to the Rescue Lab podcast. I'm PJ Halloran, and we're here with Rob Pollock today from Flow and Event, and we're going to talk volunteer rescue. We're going to talk tech rescue, and we're going to talk to Rob and see what he's got to say. So, Rob, why don't we? Well, first of all, welcome.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
No, absolutely. And why don't you start? Give us, the quick 30,000-foot view of who is Rob Pollock.
Yeah, so my name's Rob Pollock. For those of you who don't know me or whatever, that sounds kind of forward, but I think at this point in the podcasting world, it's there's a couple names that stick out. But yeah, Rob Pollock here. I'm a lieutenant in the city of Passaic, assigned to Ladder 2. That's a small little career department in the Bermuda Triangle of Giant Stadium, Patterson, and Newark. We don't have a rescue, but we do a lot with what we have. So that's that. And the volleys I've been involved in. The ongoing joke now is 13 towns in the region, going back to Colorado, New York and South Jersey. But it's been fun. Now I'm still a volunteer fire chief in Souter River, where, and I'm sure we'll dive into this, where we took a little town and kind of built out a special ops or a rescue component, however you want to label it. We like to call it special ops around here, but
it sounds cool.
It. Yeah. What else? Got a couple of degrees, been around the world now, I can say, teaching and doing fires and stuff, and do a little work with all the magazines, primarily with Firehouse now, with involved in writing for them, and sitting on one of the advisory boards. And
you just published another article?
Yeah, we had an article pop out 2 days ago on thanks, brother, on search ops. Kind of more of that techie rescue world approach for the fire service. Like, hey, you're just because you don't have USAR or UASI or some cool tech logo on your equipment or your department doesn't mean you're not doing 90% of the searches that, these teams do. So that dives into that. And, now kind of reflecting as things go on, it's kind of like, all right, we do a lot of the cool stuff. It's just not labeled that way.
Yes.
And I'm sure we'll dive into stuff, but that's me in a nutshell. I'm sure you can rip me apart.
Yeah. Now you're cannon fodder. We'll get into that. But so it was just funny, we started talking recently and we sort of connected the dots, and I was actually down Souter and you were presenting, and I was in the room and you were talking, your similar story. And that was I think that just goes to show how small the tech rescue world really is, that we sort of met before we even knew who each other was. And
sorry.
No, I was going to say, how was that experience for you?
Dude, I mean, Souter, this is one thing that I always say now, through the networks and through writing and publishing and training around the country, that's been an experience to get involved in Souter, even because for me up in this area, like I grew up in a small town, volunteer fire town, but they had a restriction on age. You had to be a certain, 18 to do stuff, and 16 is a junior member. So I joined the next town over, had a rescue squad, and the rescue squad, you could start doing stuff at 14 because they had an Explorer program. And then, you could go to EMT school first and all that fun stuff. But, that's where I started getting involved in the rescue world. And for me, like, listen, I get it. I love going to fires. I love cutting a roof. I love a good hallway push. But, and I'm, I like the tech world, man. That's just me. Like, I may not look like a rescue diver, swimmer, or whatever, but I love the water. Once you understand the water, I just growing up on the shore, it was a different thing. So, Souter, just those opportunities. Like, I think I did 3 years in a row for teaching. Last year they had me do 2 classes. This year we'll see. But like you said, that the water class for me was surreal because you had some legendary heavy hitters in the water rescue world there.
Yeah, the room was packed, man.
Like, and it was funny because there was a reporter. I guess they were doing a follow-up on a story. It was either in Florida or the Texas situation or one of the post-Asheville situations. And this reporter is just doing a quick highlight, not for the conference, but he just needed a room to talk about whatever, some flash flood that happened and a pet got swept away or something. So he's like, oh, what are we doing here? Why are people funneling in? I'm like, oh, I'm teaching more of a case study, but just a super basics water rescue approach for firefighters. And the guy's like, whoa, well, look at that timing. So again, timing's everything, unfortunately, but that's life, right? Timing, connections. You don't want to hear it growing up, but you got to get yourself out there. And it's been a blessing to me. I love that stuff. And hopefully,
that's cool. Are you going back? Are you going back this year?
We'll see. I hope so. I've been talking to Doug. I've put in a couple classes. And again, with life, like we said, I did a lot more for the state this year or up here. So my vacation days are a little tight.
Yeah, no, I know life is busy in all things, but it's a good thing. And I plan on it, so I hope they'll see you there. But let's dive into it. You just talked about some of the water stuff. What was it that pulled you into tech rescue work? Like you said, we all love the suppression side and pushing down the hallway, but what was it about tech rescue that you're like, that's for me? Like
I said, for me, like, I mean, I could be cheesy. I was a Cub Scout, Boy Scout, all that, immigrant kid, whatever. I think for me, it was like once I got involved in the rescue squad by us, I just was exposed to a lot more, right? This is like the 2006 era. So I get it for those of you that are a little older than me, like this kid's still a kid. I get it. Yeah. But at the time, that rescue squad was a heavy rescue, a light rescue, and a pickup truck, or however you want to call it,
Yeah.
from whatever spectrum you're from, the East Coast, West Coast.
Yes.
They had their little inflatable Zodiac, and those dudes were covering. We're on the border of New York, so they covered a little bit of Rockland. They were into the Souter River Valley with Upper and Souter River, and they had a history in the last at the time. They lasted about, I think, 1971. They officially opened. They closed up in 2000. Where were we? College, maybe 2013, 12, something like whatever. So they left 40 to 50 years, but they were hard chargers at the time, right? They were
Yeah.
involved in the water stuff post 9/11, and
Yeah.
the quality of guys we had there is, I think, what made a big difference in my lineage on where I ended up
Yeah.
finding a passion on. So we had, a lot of guys that I ended up teaching with at the academy, and a lot of the guys that in this region are very well respected rescue guys were chiefs there at one point. And even when I was there, they were just senior guys that would just pop in, show a drill, hang out, be part of the barbecue, and that was it. So for me, it was that unique culture of like the fire, the American firehouse culture, but
Yep.
we were doing technical stuff. And at a young age, obviously, when you're in high school playing sports, the girls, the cars, you're having fun, you're just still developing. I mean, my mind took all that in. So for me, it was like, hey man, Zodiacs are badass. Like
Yep.
I love, growing up, I was fortunate. My parents had a shore house, before the shore turned into the Jersey Shore. And, I loved the ocean. I loved the Bayside. And it was just cool to put those two things together. We did a lot at the time, and guys that were there way before me, before they, chopped up the highway the way they did, like they were running decent entrapments on a monthly, weekly basis, through their history. So it was like the guys knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Then, one thing that I brought to where I'm at now, and I'm trying to even get it, it's kind of working at work. It's even getting there is, I'm sure this will be a topic we can go crazy on, is like, how do volunteers stay involved? And it was like, it's not just the drills and the fires. Like if you give out training and you keep this core group of folks involved, you're going to have a crowd. So for me, that's the way it went. And, then what? Fire service, do my time. I get hired, do this, bounce around, and we'll go down the time. Went to Colorado and New York.
Yeah,
It was,
but you talked about,
it was crazy, man. It was good.
I'm sure, but starting at such a young age and being exposed to that environment, I just talked to a structural specialist from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and we were talking about coming up in the rescue world and the importance of having mentors. And I mean, obviously that impacted you at a very early age and gave you that mindset. And that's an important piece of, I think, coming up into the tech rescue side is finding someone who will help open those doors for you, because tech rescue or special ops, like it can be kind of a closed off world, right?
Oh yeah.
It can
Absolutely.
be very secular in a sense, so as we've talked about. But that mentorship is very important. So you had mentioned, Colorado.
Sure.
What brought you out to Colorado?
So Colorado, like I said, immigrant kid. My mom had a hook there with a lady she used to work with here. So I went to school at UC Boulder, or CU, and tried to get involved in the football thing. Had a couple of things like that going on in high school. And then I always told myself, like, my parents said, hey, if you're going to do life, you got one shot, go enjoy it. And when I was out there, I already started volunteering here, right? So I started volunteering in high school, got into the school, went out there, and then, 2-3 days in of being out there, I had family in the state, but you're on your own, you're doing things, right?
Yep.
You're either in today's society, you're a college kid, you're going right to work to the trades, or you're going to the military. It's just how I was taught. And I ended up just getting involved with the Boulder Fire Rescue just by luck, just asking questions, getting involved with the campus. And this was a funny tale because I got involved on the fire prevention side, and that is, I've learned, not my strong suit, not my thing.
Yeah.
But through one of the leadership programs as a freshman, I got involved with the stations and then working with guys. And then they ended up doing like, hey, what do you want to do? And I was like, I hate to say this, I'm probably going home, but I got to do something with the fire service. So I ended up interning, doing ride-alongs. It was like, I don't even think they had interns at the time. It was just a hook that turned into a project for another program.
Hey, that works.
It was awesome because I was bouncing around stations, checking out. Like for them, for me, it was I knew New York, right? I didn't know anything. I knew what I saw. YouTube was fresh, so I still had DVDs, right? I had the the post 9/11 Brotherhood and Battle videos and DVDs. So for me, I grew up on watching the videos of like Rescue 1, Rescue 2, these badass guys. Then I get out there and I'm like, this is a whole different culture, right?
Yeah.
They have a station with just an engine and a dive truck. I don't know what this is,
Yeah.
So got involved, bounced around. That was pretty cool. Tried to like join the volleys out there, but knowing New Jersey, New York is totally different than anywhere else. Because out there, they're like, you got to be a medic or an EMTA, or are you even a diver already? So it was enough to hold me over in college while I was out there. And it was sick because even now I still talk to, for the Instagram folks, Jake Dickies, the Sons of Irons guy. He's a Boulder rural guy. we still bounce ideas back and forth, and it's that
Yeah.
network just continues to grow.
What was the main difference that stood out cultural wise
Mhm.
between New York and what you saw out there?
Now live in it, and again, I'm in New Jersey, but we're all very similar up here in the tri-state area. It was just different, right? They run 48-hour schedules. We run the 24 or the
Yeah.
swing shift with the city guys. But it was just, I feel that even it's just more techy, right? Like here, you want to get on the rescue company to go to fires, be the guys that are the Navy SEALs of the fire department of that
Yeah.
company of that department. And out there, those guys are like, hey, no, dude, you got to know your knots. You got to know how to do wildland stuff. You got to do
Yeah.
the dirty work in a different way, right? In a different light, more of a rural wilderness style. And yes, there's cities and buildings involved and crazy highway, but even look at the roadway system, right? You
Yeah.
go outside of this area. When we get a wreck in this area, it's crazy. Sure, it's technical, but the roads are tighter, they're older. You're not going to get the stuff that you see like anywhere else outside the tri-state.
Yeah.
More over the road trucks. And even when I was out there, they had to. It happens, and now we see on the news like once a year somebody's popping up with it. You have a semi hanging off of a bridge that's like on fire, making a
Yeah,
mess.
That's like the new thing, the semi off the
Right.
bridge.
It's so, when I was out there, they had one of those by Denver Airport, and it was like, it was a sight to see. Like, phew,
Yeah.
whoa, so culturally it was cool, but even, I know I'm gonna jump future right into last year's experience, but this is all makes sense. When I was in Poland, those guys and their USAR and their technical stuff are on a whole different level, right? You go to the Firehouse, it's kind of like they're paid, they're career guys, but they also have volleys. But in Warsaw, they have their rigs, their heavy rescues, all that stuff that you see all over on all the buff channels. But then in the back, they got, their canine lives in the Firehouse, and just the handlers get switched off and the dog stays there, and they
That's
train the
wild.
dog every day. So I'm like, never heard of that in the U.S. I always heard that the
Yeah.
dog keeps the handlers with the
Yeah.
pup, and that's it. Not that they rotate.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just it was a fun experience being out there. It was cool, and I'm glad I had it because now coming back here, I feel that we've brought it into both the career and volunteer applications, and that's kind of where the writing and training started to
Yeah.
roll
No,
from there.
and so, you came back from there and you got
Mhm.
involved with OEM up in New York. What did
Yeah.
that work have you doing?
So so came back from Colorado, did my thing, finished school here in Mawa, kept volunteering in the area, and then life, right? You either gotta get off the pot or keep hustling, or you gotta do something. So I had another deal, started working with my family business, doing more and more construction and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't know, this is at that point, it's that life. You're like, what am I doing? You hit
Yeah.
that like low 20s. You're like, I know I could live. So I ended up going for my master's online through Arizona State. Didn't get to go there, just walked graduation. Didn't live out
Did you
there.
still party though?
I did have a couple nights at graduation that were fun, and it was funny.
Right.
Total side note, but it was great. One of the kids that was like basically my roommate at Colorado ended up going to Arizona State. So
Oh, yeah.
when we both graduated, we were back at ASU. But
That's
but
good.
anyway, came back to do the internship because part of the master's program in Homeland Security and Emergency Management was get an internship.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was already dating my wife, and she had a hook in New York City, and somebody knew somebody. So I ended up going to OEM. And as I've learned at the time, OEM runs Task Force 1 for New York, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
NYPD, FDNY, but they are the brainchild agency, host agency.
Yeah.
So, worked for the training division for the summer, couple months, I think it was 4 months really. And, typical clerical work, but I got, after a month of hustling, they're like, this kid what are you doing here, man? You're too blue collar, you're too hands-on to be sitting behind a desk. So I spoke to my supervisor, the commissioner of the trainings branch or whatever. And he was like, you're more of like the task force fireman. I'm like, yeah. So from there, the internship shifted a little bit, got involved at going to the warehouse a couple times,
That's awesome.
getting involved with, I didn't do much, but it was just enough to get exposed, seeing that,
Of course.
at the warehouse, they have a whole testing prop for the fire side and being involved in the EOC. So it was like to see the piles and the equipment. I was like, all right, now I started to link up like what I thought was training, what I saw out west, what you watch in the buff videos, what, the FEMA thing is starting to do, plus the amount of studying you did. I mean, I know it's a degree and people can say whatever they want with academics, but like the amount of research that went into that piece of paper, glued all those opportunities and experiences together. So that's where I was like, this is it. Like, and then as I'm applying for jobs, because for OEM you could do civil. There's a couple positions for their team. I kept applying. My notice came for the fire department, and it was that FDY EMS. Couple other police jobs, and I was like, I want to be a fireman first. Maybe I'll get to do this stuff. And lo and behold, here we are today. So
yeah,
it was a good time.
But that gave you the insight and sort of, it cemented where you wanted to be, right?
Sure.
You saw that in action. So, what I thought was cool when we first connected, obviously, when you spoke at USAR, but when we started to connect here is we started talking about rescue capability and building teams, and you brought the volley side into it. And I
Sure.
thought that was really important because, I think everyone focuses on the big companies, the big cities and building these flashy programs. But, the aspect that you brought to me was, building that on the volunteer side. I think that's just as important because these guys are doing it without the budgets, without the
Right.
flash. And I think there is a group of people out there that do need to hear, hey, this is possible. And you
Yeah.
guys have done it. But a lot of departments, they feel like rescue is unattainable if they don't have those big budgets. You know, what do you say to that?
So listen, it's all about perspective. Like I said, where I started on that rescue squad, years later, the town shut them down. They were their own private entity, not borough built, so whatever. So the town that I'm chief now lost a very good opportunity there. So years later, I come back, and in both where I was a chief previously, and even at work, right, we're not the rescue squad, right? By us at work, we have Patterson. For those of you that watch live rescue, those are those dudes. They're our UWASI company that does that stuff, that's responsible for that. But even in the volleys, where I kind of ran with it and I had the buy-in, was, UWASI does respond up into my neck of the woods, but with traffic delays, being in the tri-state area, yeah, overnight they could be there in 20 minutes, but on your standard day, it's going to be an hour. I might get
Yeah.
a chief swiftly because a car, a Tahoe is easier to get here than a full size rescue
Yeah.
or whatever the cavalry's bringing. So when I went back at the guys, when I got re-involved, I started back out when I came back to Souter River as a training officer, went up to the rank, made it the chief quick. It was just a buy-in, it was, guys, what do you guys want to do? Well, we do a lot of basic training, and all right, no problem. So why don't we start doing the training? So the way we built out our model is we kind of did it backwards, where at first, the first 2 years, guys were very confused. They're like, why are we doing, 3 straight days, 4 straight days, 5 straight days as volunteers? And I'm talking 20 guys did, rope tech, confined tech,
That's huge.
like now we got the swift water techs done, trench techs done, the collapse series is a whole nother animal, but it wasn't just, the high school kids and the college kids doing it. I got guys that are in their 50s that committed to those days. So, right, I did it the backwards model, where it was get the training first, right? Because for better or for worse, if you really look at the numbers overall, the training is going to be sometimes the cheaper end of things, right? Where, I can't go buy a $500,000 paratech trailer or a rig right away. But in my region, I know that I can get you 20 trained guys that if we pull up to your scene, or we have a catastrophe, at least we kind of know how not to get ourselves killed. And as the enforcement, the reinforcements and the cavalry start showing up with all the cool toys, with all the struts and all the fun, big money items, my guys aren't going to be lost in the sauce. They'll be able to understand the lingo, the jargon, how to get plugged right in. And I think that's what's been very successful for our capabilities. And again, it still takes neighboring partners to get involved. But from that, it all came to be 3 years ago. We started a rescue weekend, right? Our own day and our own seminar, where the first year was we got in 4 instructors that saw what we were doing, and they were like, hey, you want to just do like 2 hours on access ropes or Stokes basket, like basic stuff. We're not talking, windshields, skyscraper, like,
Yeah.
hey man, we're going to put the stick up. We'll drop the Stokes on it. Do you even know how to maneuver while hanging on a line, around a Stokes basket? And that just, opened up eyes. And I think it's been working. And even with our mutual aid partners, luckily being the chief, I get to, as everywhere, you get to be involved in some conversations. And it was even like, hey, who's running what? How's everybody's cash doing?
Yeah.
Because again, it may not be you're calling certain units. You're going to be calling certain units for the equipment or the knowledge. So I think that's where we've been lucky here. And it's growing. I mean, like for a volunteer town, right? There's no secret. This town only runs like 200 to 225 a year. It's not a busy PG style town, but the manpower is there, because guys are like, hey, what class are we doing this year? What happens if something happens? Oh, there's flooding going on. Now we're getting a high water vehicle again. They're like, oh, this is what we talk about, and then traveling, going down the Seabright for, joint drills. You just got to put yourself out there. And I think it works, but you got to have buy-in. And
Yeah.
sometimes the hardest thing is getting that ball rolling.
We talk about buy-in all the time, and people always ask, how do you get the buy-in? I feel like you just have to start.
You just got to go.
Yeah.
What are you
like
going to do? Sit
that's
around wasting time, 2 years. Oh, we don't have the money. We don't have this. All right. Well, one guy goes and does something on his own.
Yeah.
And then that was awesome. All right. Maybe we'll fund it. Maybe I could send 5 guys next year. Maybe we could chop this up,
So in that sense, you talked about being the chief, and I think administrative buy-in is huge. Obviously, you're in a great position where you can affect that. But how do you?
Let me tackle that. Yeah. I think that on the work side, right? At work, one of my retired battalions used to say, we're a dirty, snotty 4 and 2, right? 4 engines, 2 trucks, and a super battalion chief on duty, right? Our city is just over 3 square miles. There's a river that surrounds it like a peninsula. There's a couple of green areas. It's a pretty dense environment. Half the city is urban, old school. If you look at if you think of the Bronx and Brooklyn, as they film shows by us, that's where they come for because it looks like the old city. And
Yeah.
then the other side is beautiful McMansions. It is what it is, and 100,000 people packed into it. So even there, I get it, right? What's expensive? Salaries, this, everything. So how do we start giving guys something? How do we chip away at it? And the buying, like again, luckily I have my administration is drinking the Kool-Aid now and involved in some ideas that we've done. We've gone from 2-3 years ago, we bought just a simple Paratech over-the-road kit, right? Your standard couple struts, couple extensions, base tips. Why do we need
Yeah.
this? Well,
Get
it's
you out
not
the door.
right. It's not just for the tractor trailers that we have outside the firehouse because we have Amazons everywhere and distribution blocks everywhere. But
Yeah.
this could also be used for, have your car through a storefront or through a bodega. You don't have to wait 45 minutes to shore it up. You could throw a strut there and get the victim out on a swift grab, on a dirty grab, no problem.
Yeah.
So we've been lucky to just chop it up. But again, all those connections, like we said in the beginning, they're all connected, literally, right? So the guys that did the volley training are involved there. They know how pressing it is in the system. But that administrative, getting to that level, listen, if you're in a spot that's tough, you got to try. You got to try. You can't give up. You have to push through because it's going to work eventually, right?
Yeah.
Either
I
time
think
goes
they're
on or people move on, but the guys
exactly.
behind you are going to get involved and be like, yo, this was sick. I want to
Yeah.
do it. So now you become that guy as years go on and
Yeah.
you can make
And
change.
exactly. And I think the analogy of chipping away at the block is
Sure.
perfect for that, just because you're not taking a giant bite of that. It is one piece of the puzzle at a time. And it can be time consuming.
Right.
And I think that's where people sort of lose heart and maybe they give up and, the administration passes on it and sort of passes by, but that's the important thing. So
patience and
yeah.
trust, man. You got to
Yeah.
just have patience.
But what would you tell, that young firefighter who's in a department, whether it's volunteer career, and there is no buy-in, there's no culture? Where do they begin? How do they affect that?
Do it yourself. I think I'm going to go on words that guys just tell me. I want to be a rescue guy. Find a discipline you're good at that you believe in, right? So if you're on your own and you're able to do rope work, run it, get really good at that. Bring it out of drill, start chipping away at it.
Yeah.
If you're a water guy, get involved, do awareness, ops, tech, listen, there's a little bit of investment there, right? That's the other thing too, is people are like, oh, they got to pay for everything. Sure. But if you're relying on somebody else to pay your way, it's not going to happen, right? You got to invest in yourself. You got to get yourself home. You want to be smarter than the guys around you so that you don't get killed or you could call something out should something go sideways. People will see that and be like, yo, this dude took a vacation day or he didn't come to drill because he was, and you and I both know there's not plenty, but there's a good forum of free classes and free training out there that could help you guide you into this. And then you never know what happens, right? You go to a class, like they always say, hang out, meet the instructor. Now magically, hey, come back in 3 weeks. We're doing a class. You could be the demo guy. You're here for free. We see what you're going through. Like you just got to try and be persistent at it. And you never know where it takes you,
No, that's incredibly important. Like I said, when I first became captain of the rescue, I was still in a position where I wasn't fully confident in my skills. And I said, hey, I know I got to lead from the front in this. I started going to conferences and the conferences are great, but it's always those after events where you're just hanging out, talking to people from around the country. You're talking to instructors. Like that is where I think the learning really happens. And that's the important part, is just having a beer and talking about, hey, this is what's going wrong at my department. This is what we can't do. And someone's like, well, hey, this is how we affected that.
Right.
And that's, that builds trust in yourself. And you go back and you have that motivation. When departments are trying to build out tech rescue capability, what do you think the biggest downfall is early on? Or what do you think they're getting wrong?
I'm going to say the buy-in and the manpower, right? Because you can get 2-3 guys that love this stuff, but nobody's going to call you, right? Or, you're the cool kid on the block. Everybody always wants to call you because you're the cool town, and you show up and you totally fail on your face. And now your camaraderie, your credibility is thrown out the window. So like I said, that you got to have the conversation with the folks. I know, like when we started this, let's call it a program. When we started doing all this fun stuff, I told the guys straight up, I go, guys, I'm here for, at a minimum as the chief or a administrative helper or physician or training officer or whatever, at least 5 to 7. So what you're going to get out of me is this year we're going to try to do this, X, Y, and Z. And I think not holding things behind the doors and kind of just being blunt. There was a handful of guys that were like, what are you smoking? We barely do this and we don't have enough drill time. And now we're at the point where guys are like, hey, can we have an off night to just do this? Can we have a squad night? Can we have a special ops night? Can we mix this in on our own time? I go, just do whatever you want, guys.
Yeah.
I think communication is, we all joke about our fire service life, anything. It's always communication. But for real, I think you got to have some sort of framework, even if it's on paper saying, I want to start this and how. just go to the group and say, hey guys, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
You might get an old timer that will just be like, I'm not at all getting involved, but I'll sit in the corner and guide you or monitor, throw ideas back at you that you said to me to see if it even made sense,
Well, I was going to say, so that's a good point. How do you, on your side, even personally, how do you get through to those firefighters that don't want to be a part of the program or don't want to be a part of building that capability out? What's your thoughts?
Give them opportunities. So it's like finding your strengths, right? It's like the same thing on a line where you're like, oh, that dude wants to drive. Hey, man, if we get a job, just watch the new guy, stay outside. You're not the bad guy. Just we'll take your value somewhere else. And you got to know your people.
Yeah.
And that's tough too, because if you're like the guy that joins the department, it's like, hey, let's start a rescue squad or a special ops team. It's not going to happen. But as you maneuver leadership, as you maneuver the guys, you kind of figure out who's who. We had a kid that was a high school swimmer. Grew up with the kid in a bunch of departments. Known him now for over 10 years. And he was kind of a ball breaker about this whole thing. It's like, why? I'm like, let's get there. Then it was, hey, you want to go to Swift Water? Why? You want to go to ops? Why? You swam in high school, dude. You swam in college. All right, I'll try it. Then it's like, oh, that was a great class. All right, dude. Hey, tech's open. Do you want to go to tech? Just trust me. All right. Hey, you want to go on a boat? Okay. And now that guy's like, hey, can I go? So people skills are valuable. And I always tell this to everybody I work with and bounce ideas off of, anybody. It doesn't have to be an officer, just anybody. You have to know your people. And like they always say, right, the loneliest spot is at the top, but the guy at the top or the girl at the top has to be aware of a million things. So even on like a mini deployment, hey, we're going to go stage somewhere for floodwaters. I'm not going to put two guys that are button heads together. You got to know those little details.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing your people, I think
you got to know your people. But I think that's the best way to go. You just got to just talk.
Yeah, no, I think that solves 90% of problems.
Yeah.
And you talked about flooding, and obviously, your department built a lot around this flooding. How did it shape your department's rescue priorities?
Sure. So I'll hit with the volleys first. For years we always had we have like a river. I call it more of a canal, knowing rivers that goes to the center of town, splits it. Whenever we get a solid rainstorm or like a mini, we call them microbursts around here, a little rain weather development, we flood out. Nobody gets to the firehouse. We got to come in from an extra 2 miles away to loop around. So even that was funny because when I came back, I was like, what are our capabilities? Oh, we have throw bags.
Perfect.
I'm like, that's a start, but what are you going to do? You've had a history. Decades ago, they had a police officer that got swept away and got carried maybe a mile downstream and got lucky that it got kind of pinned up somewhere else and they were able to rescue the guy decades ago. Right. So when we rebuilt it now it's like maybe we should be more on the defensive side. And, I always say it's like football, right? You're aggressively defensive, but offensive. You know how it is. So even with that stuff, so even at work, it was one of those like, work, if you Google Passaic, it's not fires that comes up, it's floodings and fatalities, unfortunately. And in my time, we had like 3, but really 2 big weather events that were, record breaking for us, right? We had a miracle in the city where a girl got pulled through a culvert, survived. And then a month later, we had a very similar situation where 2 kids unfortunately passed away. But that was just at one spot, not at 2 other spots in the city. So I think that's where we chipped away, and we are chipping away with it at work, is that, hey, we don't have to be the rescue 1, the rescue 2, like this badass, mustache, Diet Cokes and, Marlboro.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Diet Cokes. I mean,
Marlboros and pizza guys, like, we're not like the bad, like we're good firemen, but maybe we should start to pick up the water stuff because, they always say, right, what's the best thing about the fire service? We're not, proactive or reactive, right? Take those reactive moments and really bloom on them, hustle up. And that's what we've done. The guys went from 0 to hero in 3 years now, got into the water, ops, a couple techs, ice time. They're doing ice stuff. We're in the water now, third party training on the boats. Now we brought back a V-hull, a little, some guys will call it the mini patrol boat, the little, I think it's like a 16 or 18 footer with the prop on it. And listen, our river's tidal. So that's where people get crazy, where it's like, oh, you're just on this S bend. I can't, but it's still tidal. So we go from, a 6-foot swell in 4 hours, man, sometimes where guys just, now this is where this, this craft can go, where the flat bottom can go, that the jet drive can go.
That's
so
important.
just being good at that, for me is a huge success where I know in my heart that I'm never going to have a heavy duty rescue truck staffed with a company, but I do know that.
Do you need that?
I would love to see that, but
well,
I know it's not going to happen, right?
Everyone loves to see that, but I mean, you can still build that capability.
Correct. Yeah. We could build that out amongst the 6 companies where it kind of takes on that West Coast or that South Country style where it's not just the toolbox is here, it's the guys are sharp. I'd rather have guys, Bruce Senior, the guy from Chicago, the chief, totally blanking on the name, but he always had that, that quote, I don't need 6 guys. I need 6 doctors and
Yeah,
surgeons.
the rocket scientists.
Yes. I
Yes.
need that immediately. I don't need 6 guys walking around in t-shirts. And
Yeah.
I feel that's the same way here and that's kind of where I'm starting to lean with the second 2/3, second half of my career is, all right, it'd be cool to have a rescue, but if everybody can swim and everybody can deploy the boat and everybody knows how to read water, we're doing strides here. We're making huge progress. So,
Yeah.
and it's the
No,
same goes for the volleys. If you can pull that
yeah.
off, it's a win. Be
Yeah.
competent and confident in what you do. And
No, I mean, I think you could have a rescue truck full of every tool, and we had that on our side, and that was where I sort of got my comeuppance on the rescue side is,
Yeah.
we had this truck, we had all the tools, but the capability wasn't there. So I mean, there's a trade-off somewhere.
Yeah.
You can have one but not have the other, and
Sure.
to have the people with the skills, I think, is vastly more important.
Oh yeah.
What is you see a lot of flooding down there? What are some overlooked realities of urban flooding response or a response to urban flooding?
I'll be honest. I think everybody's pretty much unprepared for it, right? Because a lot of folks will go take like the New York facility. The facilities out in the Carolinas, both of them, right? They have 2 now in North
Yeah.
Carolina. Alabama's opening up one soon, and I'm sure there's a handful more out on the West Coast. Teeks has one. Those flood towns, those movie sets are vital. But again, how do you get there? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of folks, and again, I'm not no maritime. Excuse me, I'm not a big maritime guy. There's a lot of guys that are way better than me at this stuff. But just through the experiences and surviving some things, I feel that a lot of not excuses, but a lot of mindsets are built upon you go take a swiftwater tech class, you do your 3-4 days, everybody swims through the same little ravine and the little gap and the little hill on a chute, and everybody gets their certificate. And now I'm a swiftwater tech and I'm the guy for my department. And I feel the issue there is like when you do get a legitimate flood in a suburban or urban town that doesn't involve a natural or man-made riverbed or whatever, a creek, people lose their bearings and just go out the window saying, oh, it's white water, it's a problem, it's moving fast. Like, again, in our case, unfortunately, what happened was when the car got stuck on the culvert, right, your basic main drainage, I think the pipe's like an 8x12 opening where everything just in one section of the town goes. Like, oh, it's just flooded out. I go, guys, there's a culvert under that.
Yeah.
No, don't worry about it. We'll go check it out. I'm like, I'm just a fireman, but listen to me for once. And, it worked out in the fireman's benefit. But that's where you got to start bridging the gap. And like we say, with academics in the fire service, there's guys that can study and take every class, but you got to know how to apply it. So I think that's one of the pitfalls in urban water that folks kind of don't look at. And again, you have to know your map. You have to be a realist about it. Am I going to send guys to marina classes and send them to like Hawaii to do crazy stuff to operate in my town? Sure. If we have the funding and some magical grant,
send me too.
Right,
send me.
Go have fun. But the reality of it is like, maybe you'll learn an ounce of something there, but you're not going to do those operations where we are, right?
Yeah.
Especially where we flood in the work scenario. If you're not by the riverbank, I mean, during Hurricane Ida, the river met the highway, and that's one day I'll go measure the grade. I'm sure there's a very smart.
I remember the picture from your
right.
I remember the picture from your presentation. It was wild.
It's bad, and like you go there a couple days later, like, and myself and the other captain will go there once in a while just to be like, the water rose like 16 feet from street level, and our street is already 30 feet from the river. So, Mother Nature can do some crazy stuff. You just got to know how to apply everything. Yeah. So,
yeah. And you talk about the flooding and you use the term water park.
Mm-hmm.
Operationally, as a department, how do you handle that when it comes in? Like, obviously you dealt with all this stuff. Like, have you learned from those past? Like, are you ready to take on the next event? Are you?
Yeah, I think personally I have, and I think both the volunteers and the career world have. It's good and bad, right? Because, now we have policies. There was always some sort of basic SOG or P on it, like, oh, go put your vest and helmet on and put your booties on and stay 15 feet away from the water. But I think now with the capabilities and knowing your guys, knowing who's trained, knowing who loves, because again, you'll get 20 guys that have the class and went through it, but 5 of them are always going to be your go-to swimmers. You go back to the whole reach, throw, go, helo, fun thing. Like, I'll be honest, I'm more of a go guy just because I know I can execute the operation a lot better than waiting. Okay, hey guys, we're gonna start throwing lines. 1 goes, 2 goes, 3 goes. They're all missing. I could have gotten the guy, 20 feet up river before it came down. Yeah. But volley wise, I think we're doing good because again, now we have buy-in. We know we set up, pre-plans on where the rig's gonna go, who's going down. Even now at work, we're in the process of redeveloping the plan where like I said, we only have 6 companies on duty on a good day, and 2 of those companies have to close down to go get the boats to launch them at different points. Yeah. So even that's a win because now a confirmed or a witnessed drowning or a fallen body in the water is now a basically a second alarm response where all of our companies go in the water. And
Yeah.
now we know that the east side boat is going through the high drop, the west side boat's going to the low drop. We can control the river from both angles. The other companies are going to be spotters on the river. Maybe, the truck goes down as a downstream safety setup. It works. But
Yeah.
again, practicing is good until what happens on the streets, right? Now you have 3 blocks closed off.
Yeah.
The mains are going. So I think we're definitely light years ahead of where we were a couple of years ago, but you can
That's
always
good.
get better. You
Of
can always
course.
get better. So
Of course. Switching it to back to the volley side,
sure.
a lot of volunteer departments struggle with training, retention. How do you keep that momentum alive? Just in general, not even on the tech rescue
Yeah, yeah,
side. I
yeah.
mean,
Dude, it's been a medical mystery. That's the weirdest way. It's just been a miracle, honestly,
yeah,
because there's some nights where I'm like, damn, there's 3 guys here. But I think it does come down to credibility and leadership of everybody involved.
yeah,
Because again, we all know we all have characters in our firehouses or our squads or whatever you're part of. And I think the toughest part is just maintaining that, right? Like telling people, hey, that guy could be a complete, not nice dude, but he's phenomenal at the gears or at winches or something. So guess what? That's all he's responsible for. So let him run. Don't shun the guy away. And I
yeah,
think keeping that open door, you can hear all your excuse me, all your typical civil service or personnel answers are out there. They work. You just got to know how to execute it, and you got to be a people person. And I
yeah,
think as you move up the leadership, even if you're the training officer, even if you're the guy in class or just the guy or girl at drill, just have an open mind because there's different models. Like we're very fortunate by us where we have a slight stipend that helps monthly. Plus the drills are kind of fun. But before we got to our level now, it was, we chopped it up. It was, a meeting night one night, an engine drill, a truck drill, and a rescue drill. We chopped it up to try to keep guys involved. But what do we see there? I'm only coming out on the last Tuesday. Why? Because I just wanted to rescue shit. Okay, cool. But you still have to do fireman stuff here.
yeah. That's the whole job.
It still says fire department on it. But again, it's you got to chip away at it and keep it all. It comes down to communication. And we do that here too, is at the beginning of the year and quarterly, we'll have like a powwow, like something in the career side. We kind of have that every day. Hey guys, this is what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. In the volleys, we kind of started doing that at our meetings. Like, hey guys, is everybody cool? What's going on? This is the direction for this month or next month. There's going to be changes. We know that's going to happen. But if you're not going to be here, just be honest. Tell us you're not going to be here and we're not going to wait for you. And that's gone light years ahead too to help out situations of distress, right? Because you'll have officers and senior guys. They're like, well, if I'm here for 48 years and this kid doesn't want to show up, but he gets all the gear, all right, I totally understand it. It's a constant dance. Everybody's going through it. That's its own
No,
animal.
it is, and I think that goes back to the communication part and just keeping your thumb on the vibe of the department and
Yeah.
and knowing your people. And we talked about the big tough rescue guys and the pride that goes into that. Do you think that pride on the volley side or or not even the buy-in, but the ownership
Mhm.
means almost more?
I think so. I think that's where I found ourselves in a unique crossroad now where, we're at a point now where guys are like, all right, we went through all the training. When's the equipment coming in? Now you want me to do an 80-hour collapse class in the next 2 years. What are you, crazy? Like we
Yeah,
still haven't been called to a tech job or whatever. I go, yeah, you're absolutely right. But you also have 4 more certificates that we're still training on and keeping up to par on. It's like, oh, I didn't think of that. I go, right. These skills that we're doing, and this might go back to the last question as well, is these skills that we've done the way we built out the class organization, like you're going to do a lot of this stuff on the fire ground, right? So it's not just, oh, I wasted 4 days. It was, oh, you did rope work. Well, now you're doing a basic Stokes basket lower and you're like, oh, wait, I know a couple, nuggets that could help us. It's not a tech job. Some
yeah,
people, it's just a basic remove the injured worker off the roof and slide them down the rails or something or the
yeah,
rungs or something.
yeah.
But
Throw
now
some
the
ropes
guys,
on there.
right, that's it. Make it different. Don't get
Yeah,
crazy. So I think that's been a home run with it. The pride thing, I'm very big on that. Like I don't come around like, hey, I'm a New York Yankee or something, but I tell the guys like, and I do see it with the folks, even going last night to the fire, like, we went to the fire, we went to set up and they're like, hey, can you please flow? We want you to set this in the house was 3/4 of the way burnt through, unfortunately. So we had just a garage to really worry about, but it
yeah,
was like, hey, stick the roof. I go, all right, well, if we stick it our way, we're going to get up there. We're going to knock out a gable vent or whatever, make our own gable vent. We'll put the ladder pipe through it. Sure. And then it was like, what are you guys doing on the roof? I go, that's how we do things. That's how our culture and our department and our company has developed. So I think on the same side of rescue stuff, whenever there's a water job around here, I actually love seeing this now. Like whenever something does happen within the 3 counties in the state we're on, I'll get a text from 3 guys like, hey, dude, we going? Do we have a shot? Did you see this yet?
yeah,
Listen, I know we're not going, but that drive, that burst they got, they're like, oh, I'm like, hey, just watch it, research it. Like,
yeah,
bring it back
yeah.
next drill, put it in
Learn
the
from it.
chat, learn,
Yeah,
tell the guys what's going on, keep them aware. I think,
No,
that's got some positive to it.
I think that speaks to, like, that's exactly why I started this podcast, is like, there's people out there that, they might go their whole career and not be part of that big tech
Mhm.
rescue, but like the ability to watch others go through it, hear their stories, like there is something of value to that,
Yeah.
and to sort of sustain you in your journey as you keep trying to take all these classes, keep training, trying to
Yeah.
get better. You just mentioned the surrounding communities. How important do you think regional collaboration is with in tech rescue?
100%, 100%. You need to have it. I know, like, keep it as simple, right? Interoperability. And I'm not going to go into a radio discussion, but just struts, right? So if you have, if you want to go junkyard dog versus a paratech versus a rescue jack versus a whoever, the new stuff's coming out now. I
Yeah,
know at the end of the day, they're all interchangeable somehow. But,
yeah,
having those kind, that's what was crazy in the last couple of years, was having those conversations where guys would go to a meeting, be like, I don't like this guy. I don't like that guy. I'd be like, what kind of struts do you guys run? And they're like,
yeah,
what do you mean? I go, I'll be honest. If I have some crate, because for years this strip of 17 from the Paramus border to New York up in the Mawa was known as a they always said it was one of the deadliest strips for decades. Like, if we need help, I don't need the manpower. I need your equipment. I need to strut things. I need to stabilize things. So if I call you though and you don't have a certain brand, do you know how to jump in here to see what I'm capturing, what I'm doing, how to just learn the lingo? And I think that's where we've been pretty lucky so far. Again, it helps kind of knowing everybody around you and growing up with everybody and being a member of Hoffman Apartments. But,
yeah,
you know, I think that was the biggest thing that's been positive. And now we're learning that as well at work, though, on the water rescue side, where, yes, we know that boats and crafts and training costs money. So I feel like we're becoming the front runner of water rescue. I'm not saying swift water rescue, but river rescue. Let's stick with that. Where folks up and down from the falls down to us are like, "Hey, would you be willing to come out if we have anybody?" And I get it. It's a strain on the system and your own town, but you train to that capability. You have the equipment, right? The same stuff that I just talked about in the volleys. The guys just put all these extra days in to get these classes,
yeah.
and now they get to go on the boat and downstream into another county or town to be like,
Yeah, there's a
"We did
payoff in
something."
that.
Correct. So, we kept talking about communication and buy-in. And I think at the end of the day, when you have everybody around you going, all right, you guys are crazy and you still suck at something, but you got something going. All right, I'll take that. That's a win,
Yeah. Yeah,
100%.
you gotta those small wins have to pay
Oh,
out,
yeah.
and I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's important. And also I think on the building side, working in collaboration with other
hmm
parties in the region helps
Sure.
build your own capability. I mean,
And that's what was great about our rescue weekend when we run this thing. Normally it's in May. This year it'll be in October. That's what's awesome about it because it's the initial concept was just for the Souter River guys to have a standalone guys like almost like an in service guys. Whatever we
yeah,
want to go over. We'll bring in some guys to help us lead things, so we don't have to lead it. I could be on an evolution. And now it turned into the first year was because we're part of two mutual aid groups, which made it a little tougher on student count. But it was like, hey, let's invite one extra person from every town of all the extra 22 towns that just show up. So now you have our 30 to 40 plus those 22. And then one thing I do when I set it up is I chop up the groups.
yeah, oh,
It's
absolutely.
old school. It's like
Everyone hates that.
right. It's like pick up a stick in hockey when you're on the pond. And it was the
Yeah,
same here. I'd be like, all right, you're working with this guy, with this guy, with this guy. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, well, it's for some crazy catastrophic reason. I'm on the parkway in Paramus with my rescue. I want to know your face. I don't
yeah,
need to know you. I don't need to know your equipment. But at least to be like, hey, that's the dude from that weekend.
yeah,
All right, come on.
yeah,
I saw you know how to do something.
yeah,
So I think, you have to have that kind of, and it could be as simple as you go to a meeting and just say, hey, dudes, we're doing this kind of stuff. If anybody's interested, shoot me a text. Come visit us on our drill night. We don't have to make this a next level thing, but you never know. And you'll be surprised how many people might be like, what are you guys doing? Can I come
yeah.
check
Oh
it?
yeah,
It's going to happen.
somebody will be interested.
Absolutely.
That's important. We'll switch gears here. Let's talk flow and vent. Tell
Oh,
me
yeah.
about that. Where'd that come from? Where's that
Yeah.
at?
The animal of flow and vent. So yeah,
Yeah,
going back to the volunteer high school days, and I still volunteer obviously, but that was just a bitching fest of us younger kids that were 16, 17, 18, not understanding the fire service, creating a Facebook page to literally vent about ideas and post the drills we were doing. But like we just mentioned, it started out as just like a bitch fest, and then it turned
yeah,
into, hey, my buddies from here, other guys started to see we weren't that crazy. Hey, can these guys come drill with us? Can we start a pro B drill? Can we do a junior drill? And it all kind of built from there. Then we went to, I went to college. It kind of had a year of not much. Cause again, that was the start of social media. That was the start of WordPress. And the website, I left it ancient original. Cause I don't know. I don't know if I'm too lazy to blow up a website and make it the next level or just nostalgia of seeing like how bad
Yeah.
it started.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's a bunch of us involved. Like I always say in the beginning, it was Pete and I. Pete's down in Maryland, and then Mike, Chad, Matt jumped in. If you listen to any of the older episodes, we do have a bunch in the queue. It's just life right now with all of us.
Yeah.
Mikey's the boisterous Italian New York voice that loves to rip me apart. Mikey's
Perfect.
it's great. It works. But the podcast has been fun. And again, that just opened up the opportunities though to everything else, from the reading, the writing, editing textbooks. If you really don't like me, open up some of your textbooks and you might see my name on the inside of them. Right. I never thought I'd be doing that. Right. I was a kid that was failing high school English. And then,
Mom, look at me now.
I look at me and I could put a couple words together. But again, to go to different stages, like for me, yes, FDIC, Firehouse, Expo. Now these are big conferences, but for me personally, like Susar is my jam. Right, because especially I'll just jump back to what you said with the how this was all based off a flow event. These little complaints, these little bitch fests, these podcasts, these ideas, these conversations. Again, I wasn't going to do anything because I feel I'm not anybody to discuss water rescue. But after those kind of, let's call them legit rescue and near miss events, like I didn't like I know. A couple of our buddies were in the class, sitting in the back, and then they're like, "Hey, do you know who was in your class in the front row?" I'm like, "I saw a lot of Task Force on Texas shirts and A&M shirts," and the guy's like, "Dude, that's Skippy." I'm like,
"Yeah."
He's like,
the water
"Look
guy.
him up." He goes, "Look him up." I'm like, "And?" He goes, "He said you did too bad." I was like, "Is that a good thing?" He goes, "You didn't get destroyed, so you passed today." I'm like, so training and teaching around the area has been fun, and that's one thing with New Jersey is there's a lot of good, credible brands and businesses up in this neck of the woods. But everybody can have a piece of the pie. I'm not looking to teach the world. I just like to teach. I love teaching for people. Heck, I have taught and still teach for a handful of companies that are around here. So I just love this stuff, man. I just the more and more you learn about it, the more you involve. Like that's why I started writing about search, because it's where, like, again, like you, like in college, I went for film studies to college. I was doing film growing up, and I was like one of them artsy guys that was like, I love movies, I love cinematography. Well, guess what? The search world allows you to be a bulldog blue collar guy and a nerd that works cameras and audio equipment. So why wouldn't you want to put the both worlds together?
Of course.
If you're that nerdy dude that's good on a lens, knows how to find stuff, knows technology, but also wants to get beat up and dirty with the rescue guys, you're right there.
Sign me up.
Great. So that's why I break chops. Like, well, you got to apply for one. I go, I'm in for that, and I'm not changing my subject. I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
Just give me opportunity. So flow event's been fun. It's again, taught a lot of conferences, and that's where I get funny, because like when you go to teach somewhere, it's always like, is it Rob Pollock? Is it flow event? I go, dude, and I always say it at every class when I teach, and I should just post it on the gram sometimes. Like, for me, the way I look at flow event is, yes, it's a name. There's a flag and stickers and hats, but it wasn't really like a brand per se, like a Nike or a Toyota. And I don't want to call it like a movement, but it's more of like to me, it might sound cheesy as heck, but it's more of like a cultural thing, right? Like I always say, anybody that's been a part of it, has ripped us apart, has supported it, has thrown a comment, hey, this was cool or wasn't cool. Like, you're part of it. You're part of that growth, that idea, that concept. It's like conceptual thing, flow and vent, where it's opened up the animal for a lot of things going forward.
Well, you mentioned it started out as a bitch fest and whatnot, and that has its own its own rights. And there can be a lot of bitch fests on social media.
Oh, yeah.
How do you harness that for the good? Or like, where's the line? Where's the line?
I know. And in the beginning, it was funny because, like, again, fortunately, many of us, again, maybe we were just a little bit stronger minded and not crazy. But there were definitely times where, you would post something, a war would break out, and this guy says this and that guy says that. Which, don't get me wrong, the first couple of years I'd be watching, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, and it wouldn't even be us, like you and I talking over a photo or an image or a video. It was completely people from left field destroying one another, like some kid in the basement destroying the FDNY or vice versa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but then again, at that point though, like I saw a lot of that, and people, everybody would scrub their pages and hide something or delete something. I let it go. And I was like, let them talk it out, because, we've been fortunate. Yeah. But then again, not the camaraderie, but the credibility, like now somebody's going to definitely start a war on one of these next coming posts. But for the last couple of years, it's been pretty professional, right? Like the guys that complained weeded themselves out. They got weeded out by the guys that were actually having good discussions on these posts and these conversations. They're like, hey, can we try this? Why'd you do that? In the beginning, it was like, like everywhere. Oh, why did this guy take every window? Blah, blah, blah. Now folks would be like, we did that because of X, Y, and Z. Or here's my phone number. Have the conversation. That's the best thing, right? Somebody's like, F you, man. And you're like, here's my number. Call me. I actually want to discuss it, to learn from your scenario.
Imagine that.
Imagine
no way. Yeah.
it goes, so it goes.
Uh, Going back to tech rescue, I mean, what do you think the people misunderstand about it the most about tech rescue?
I think the most misunderstood thing is that it is like a cult, right? Like a cultural cult. Yes, you just got to know your region, what you want to do, and it will find your niche will find your way. You know what I mean? So for me, yes, I'm a huge fan of the building collapse up. Will I ever be involved with one? I don't know. I don't think so, but I love studying for it. I love training for it.
Yeah.
But my niche, for better or for worse, is the water, right? I'm not saying listen, the guys in Texas and everywhere else are way better than me, but for up in this region, I'm pretty good at it. I understand my topography, my backyards, but you put that together with a little bit of technology and search, now I can do what I'm good at, right? Even as simple as, going back to my internship days and the degrees and being a chief, like even tech rescue, there is a component of the command structure that isn't discussed that people
Yeah.
don't think about. So I think like for me, my niche is get in there. It's not really a cult. You just got to know what you want to do and you got to roll with it. And
Yeah.
I do feel 100% that you just got to ask questions and every fireman wants to help a fireman. I get it. There's sometimes I'll text Chief Downey, just have ideas to bounce ideas with him. I met him years ago when I was
Yeah.
an intern and then
Why
at
don't you put us in a
Susar.
group chat? Put us in a group
There
chat.
you go. I'll set you up.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to bounce like my buddy Matt over the borders in New York. He's a squad guy and a task force guy for New York. Same thing. He's been helping me with the test process and studying and ideas and articles. Like he's just a guy in the background though, because he's like, dude, just do you, man. I'm just here to help out. But the culture there is right. It's just like a firehouse, like anything in life. I feel there's a lot of good dudes. You just got to get involved and ask questions, and you
Yeah.
got to be hungry because guys will
Yeah.
see if you want to be part of this. As in anything, doors will open.
And I think that is just putting yourself out there. That was
Yeah.
something that I had to do, obviously to get into this, whatever it is I'm
Yeah.
doing. But it was just, it was like, hey, I'm going to take that step out and see what happens. And, that journey so far has been better than I had expected. And just meeting the people that I have met and having those conversations. And it's been life changing, but it ingrains you even more into that culture, which is great. Training wise for tech rescue, do you think departments overcomplicate it?
Yeah, 100%. We could go down a huge rabbit hole of training, right? Why
Yeah.
do certain companies charge an arm and a leg and like your entire mortgage and pension for a class?
Yeah.
And
You
that's
get a sticker at the end though.
you get a sticker. It's great,
Yeah.
but
It
now
is cool.
now you're living out of a shoebox.
Yeah.
But I think there is a lot of overapplication, and I think that's why, again, for work, right? My work access, I don't have 90% of what folks have for rescue. I have to bring stuff from the volleys or stuff that I bought myself to teach my guys at work. But when you chip away at it, tech rescue is pretty simple. You just have to like take it in pieces. It's like building Legos, right? Like it's fundamental skills are all there. Even like it was funny. The one trench thing we did a couple weeks ago, Herb came up from Florida, the NRC guys, and we had an L trench, and like the corner dropped in. He's like, all right, this got real. There's no way to set this up. We don't have to make it happen, make it work. And I think that's the biggest thing of slowing down. Guys want to do all these crazy epic maneuvers and training scenarios. And when you really break it down, and that's, again, the article that just came out with searches, like there's nothing special about it. You just got to be competent in it. Like when I'm on the river, on the boat, whether it's a flat bottom, it don't matter what you're on. Like when you're looking at it, like, what are we looking for? Break it down. Is it a lot? Are we searching for a person? Is it a body in the water? Was it a witness? Use your brain, break it down, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to get that crazy. Common sense is not so common in 2026.
Yeah.
If you have that superpower, you're ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
So, and that's, one thing that hopefully, the tri-state area, New Jersey, New York start to like kind of harness in is, you go to New York Tech Conference, you go south, you go out west, like a lot of these technical, even Maryland's is, a leader in this. A lot of the tech classes are state-based. I'm not saying everything should be state-based, but the opportunity for the fundamental skills should be somewhere there. And then as you want to progress, you go wherever you want. But, that's one thing that's a little difficult in our area where, again, that buy-in that we talked about a while ago is tough to get guys to stay motivated. Because, again, from a departmental standpoint, my training budget's only 10 grand a year. That's a lot for some places.
Yeah.
So where am I getting 10 grand is half a class. That's why we're chopping everything up. Or you hook up with phenomenal dudes that believe in the team, believe in the guys, and, it goes a little further. But, and then look at the UASI system. The funding's not there anymore that it was.
No,
FEMA's going
no,
through its
it's
battles all the time. So eventually, in the next 100 years, like, yeah, it's going to change. It's not going to be, hey, you're on the team and you're getting free money to go do stuff. It's going to
yeah.
be, you need to find ways to become competent in these skills, What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's funny, the USC side, like, we're USC in the Metro Boston region, and like back in the day, like it was just a free for all of money.
Hmm.
And I talk about that in my talk is like that's great. And when that windfall comes in, but how do you prepare for the time that that money is not there?
Gone.
Because
Now
now
what?
you have no skills to look around and get that money. And like we ran into a small problem with a search camera. And it was a Homeland Security fund, and there was a broken pin in it. And the company was like, "Hey, that's fine. Send it back." I was like, "Hey, chief," I was like, "We just need to send this back to the company." He's like, "That's not our equipment. That's Homeland Security equipment.
Yeah.
Like, tell them to pay for it." I'm like, "It's probably $15 to send."
Yeah.
Like,
I'll go drive it.
yeah, I literally will just buy the. I think I had to. I forget, but it's just like that. The funding and the money, it's great when
Yeah.
you have it, but you have to plan for the times that you
Correct.
don't.
Correct. And I think
Mm.
that's going to be the hurdle. And it's currently the hurdle. We're all living through it in this area and across the
Yeah,
country.
I think that's I think that's a
You
national
know?
thing now. It's
Oh,
and
yeah.
I feel like people have always, you always hear departments crying poor, but I feel like the last year I've heard it more than
Yeah.
ever before, and it is like
It's
it
real.
is just
Yeah,
it is,
but
and it's
nobody
just
was
like
aware. Nobody was preparing or thinking about this.
no, I don't know.
Whatever.
So let's go back to your put your emergency management hat on.
Sure.
Where do you think departments are unprepared right now?
I mean, from the volley side in this region, I mean, I know everybody's crying wolf everywhere on
Yeah,
everybody's hurting, bottom line. That's my thing now is that's why we really put the pressure on for our guys to get at least trained up. Because I know, like we said, equipment's getting older, and from the chief level to OEM kind of kid mindset, having 20 folks that are trained to a certain level of technician or above,
yeah,
but I can get a UASI truck here with 2 or 3 guys immediately. Now I could go to work,
yeah,
right? Being unprepared is everywhere. I mean, you could say it's a manpower issue, it's the apparatus falling apart. You could say the equipment's falling apart. Everything's true. We all know we're all living through it right now. But I think from a bigger standpoint, and I feel that we in this region are a little slower to this, at least up North Jersey. I think the whole EMAC system that's operating now and resource typing and all that is phenomenal. It's been happening on the West Coast, the center of the country, and the South are doing it. I think we're getting on board with it. I just hope it's executed properly, and I think that will help pitfall that capture that gap that's there. Because again, for when we had our scenarios that I guess our case studies that have gone viral in the water rescue history, like at one point we were calling for any and all help,
yeah,
but Task Force One was coming back from a pre-deployment on the East Coast, and we were stuck in our own little borders, and nobody was coming. So what are you going to do? And I think for better or for worse, in my personal opinion, whatever leadership you're in, whatever rank structure you're in, you have to prepare for the what if nobody's coming,
yeah. No, I
because
mean,
that's
and
what's going to happen, right? It's
it's funny. It's a tagline in at least the special ops community. Like, no one is coming. It's up
right.
to us. I mean, there
Yeah.
is legitimately nobody coming. Sometimes,
Right.
you're the special ops program.
Yeah.
You're the
Do
be all
you.
end all. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
You
You
it's
have to be ready for that.
I need more boats. They're not coming. Figure
Yeah,
it out,
yeah,
and if you can't execute the rescue and it turns into a recovery or something, justify. I mean, like you have to be, and that's the world. I think, folks. I mean, we can have another podcast on like the rescue squad officer or the rescue mindset or whatever. Like, so you got to make some tough decisions. Like in our
yeah,
scenario, it was when I had my grab, I witnessed the kid. He was on top of a car starting to float. I was like, I'm swimming,
yeah.
in of course in rubber fire structural boots in Class Bs,
Yeah,
but and
that's water rated.
it's horrible. It was a
Yeah,
life lesson. But
yeah,
hypodermic needles and all that fun stuff. Take the risk.
yeah.
But then you
No,
got a car to your right, 30 feet that's teetering in a culvert. What are you going to do?
yeah. You
So
got to make it happen.
you got to make things happen.
No, I think you're right. We could definitely have about 5 more podcasts. But as we close out, what keeps you personally motivated to continue building out these rescue programs?
I don't know. I think it's just it's funny you mentioned that. Every time I drive home from work, I call Mikey and guys just to vent about the day and things like that. And I always think to myself, like, why am I doing this? I just found a passion for the rescue world. And again, it's not like I want to wear the badge thing or I want to be one of those guys. I think for me, it's just, it's that next level, right? So for me in my personal world as a volunteer, I could be the chief. That's as far as I can go,
Yeah,
right? What can I do? Oh, join another town and become a chief in another town. What am I, Thanos? Am I starting getting rings? Like, I don't want to do that.
yeah,
At work in a place where I've settled and, listen, I'm fortunate enough to be the senior lieutenant on the truck, right? That's
yeah,
crazy to say too. Like, we still have that kind of old school traditions there where it's like, if you're the senior guy, you help make the decisions on the equipment and the
Oh,
stuff.
absolutely.
And
As it
whatever.
should be. As it should be.
Which is phenomenal, but I got to take that with a grain of salt because I know we only have 4 and 2. I know we won't have the rescue, but I can take all this and influence it. And I see it now, right? At work. I know for some guys, they'd be like, are you kidding me? 11 years in at work, I now see what's going on. Like, there are a lot of kids and dudes and girls on the job that are like, yo, I heard you had classes. I heard you went here. Can I go? How'd you do that? Like this. I think that alone is, being able to say that you were able to be part of the reason why somebody survives something or somebody does a grab. I think that's where your mindset should be, right? It's not about getting the Valor Award or having every patch. It's like, hey, I've been here doing this all by myself on my shift with my rig. Now my company wants to do it. Now the shift wants to do it. Now the whole city wants to do it. I think if you could just take yourself out of the materialistic mindset of I want this and see the bigger picture, not to go on a whole like Confucius say concept conversation, but at the end of the day, I think that's what's really, if I really dig down, I think that's kind of, why I do this. Cause I love this, but now to see like everybody involved that's buying in, like guys that barely knew their streets are now like, hey, can we go on rope today? I'm like, well, yeah, of course. What?
Yeah. I think that buy-in is way more valuable than any award you can get. Seeing that actually come to fruition it's very gratifying, and knowing that at least you're helping being part of that.
And who knows what that dude or girl become? Like they might become the big, big wig. Who knows?
And if you had some influence in that, like that's awesome.
It's crazy. Yeah.
If you can improve one thing about rescue culture nationally, what would it be?
I'm going to say something crazy because I'm not in it. I personally don't feel that I'm in it enough, even though I teach a bunch of stuff. I don't think, and again, going back to the last comment, like not being a big teams guy, I personally feel that I'm not credible enough. That's maybe my thing. Like you don't play for the Yankees, so you can't be that guy, which
I think that's but I think that's a common
misconception. Sure.
Yeah, but
I would say like now after traveling to Europe, being on the West Coast, guys got to get out of their bubbles, right? So one thing I do know, again, with all the training and knowing folks from around the country, I know the FEMA system and guys that are at that level are pretty standard and on the same sheet of music for the most part. But when it comes to folks that are not at the big teams level, I think you have to get out of your bubble and actually see what's going on. And I think that is a current pitfall because, again, like 2 towns from us, the guys are heavy duty. They're fucking slaying it. Excuse my French. They know what they're doing. You come to my neighborhood, you're like, you guys are really good at what you do, but you have absolutely nothing. We didn't even know you could do this. Yeah. So I think you have to get out there. You have to see the world. You have to see what's around you because you might go somewhere and be like, why did I buy this $1 million trailer when I just needed 20 grand worth of stuff and I could do everything with it in a certain respect. So I think bottom line is people just got to get out of their zones and experience things and have conversations. And, social media and conferences absolutely help. But I think that's what's happening, right? These little conferences are popping up more so now for the rescue world, right? We always saw the Fools events and fire. Yeah. You always had the big shows, the big conferences, but now you're starting to see more rescue things pop up. A lot of water rescue conferences are popping up around the world. Live swimming and I think it's doing good. You just gotta take the risk and go try.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Take the risk to better yourself. But hey, Rob, I appreciate you making the time for me. First of all, I look forward to the group chat with Chief Downey. I'll expect that to come through later today.
You're like, who's this guy? If
I send like a really cool meme, do you think I'd be in instantly?
I'm just a Jersey kid.
There's only one way to find out. There's only one way to find out. So anything coming up for Flow Event? What's going on?
I don't know. Flow Event's going to be, I think we're going to rebuild the podcast. I know, a lot of us had family things in life that we slowed down there, but that's it. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. Like I said, the posts are going to keep coming out the way they're coming out, we're just going to stay to our jam and not kind of keep doing what we're doing and ride with it, That's it. Keep it simple.
That's what we need in the rest of the community. So thank you very much. And we'll see you next time on the Rescue Out Podcast.